To the Aravosis Report. John Aravosis here to talk all about Ukraine and the latest developments in the war. And more good news today, generally speaking, which is a good thing. Not all good news, but mostly good news. Turn off my sound on my TikTok so I don't get reverb. Anyway, how's everybody doing today? Maybe go a quick little hello like we usually do. Say where you are hailing from if you would, while I have my cappuccino, because I suddenly couldn't figure out why I was getting a headache half an hour ago, or actually 20 minutes ago, and I went, oh my God, I forgot to have my second cup of coffee. I make my coffee every morning and keep one cup in the thermos and totally forgot to drink it. And I'm going, why am I getting a headache? Oh my God. So a little late for me to be having coffee. I'm going to be bouncing off the wall at midnight, but I don't have a choice because I'm going to get a headache otherwise. So I'm having my cappuccino. Any Italians out there are having a heart attack right now that I'm having my cappuccino at 6 o'clock. Nummy. Anyway, welcome all. Oh, thank you for the gift on TikTok. As always, I will start the show by doing about 20 minutes worth of news, maybe 25 minutes. We go usually till 6:30 or so. I should say the half hour, depending where you are, or so. And then we will do Q&A, question and answer, and all of that, and we'll go for about a good hour. So should be good. But yeah, just say kind of where you're from and where you guys are coming in from, because I think it's kind of nice to tell people that. Again, while I have another sip or two of my coffee, I'm going to keep sipping this during the show, so excuse me. Forgot my cappuccino today. Nummy. Just to remind folks, very much appreciate the gifts you guys supply and give me, because they help me keep going, because I am doing this full time and can only afford to do it if you guys keep supporting me. So I appreciate it. On TikTok, these gifts are very welcome. The only warning I give you on TikTok, whenever I do the show like this, where I've got the stuff on the side of the screen and everything, it won't let you do the gifts that are the glasses or the hats. Every other gift works. All the cool, landscaping and the flying butterfly. There you go. I call those the Christmas lights, whatever they are. All those work, but the ones that don't work are the glasses and the hats. So just avoid those and we are set. The rest of you, obviously, super chat questions are always very welcome. Thank you for that. I'm going to take my jacket off. I keep going back and forth, warm and cold here. I'm going to guess it's the cappuccino at 6 p.m. that's making me warm. Otherwise, for submitting questions, thank you for the seafloor on TikTok. That's my favorite. For the questions, the way we do it is go to my profile, look for the Q&A link, and use that to submit your questions on TikTok. TikTok got rid of the Q&A link in the lives. Lord knows why, but they did. So go to my profile, use the Q&A link, queue up your questions there. It makes it much nicer. Thank you for the guy on TikTok. Makes it much easier to go. And for the rest of you, obviously use the comment box or the super chat box. Quick little thing to tell you. We've got 2 more days on our latest auction. I've been doing auctions over at the Patreon. We have set up our Patreon, our Discord community. Patreon's kind of attached but different, but our Discord community we set up. The community is free. Some of the auctions we're doing there are free, not free, but available to everybody, but some of them are only for our paid subscribers. This current auction is for everybody, but I've got a paid subscriber one coming up. This one's pretty neat. It's a real Ukrainian beret badge, or beret badge, medal. And it's got the trident in the middle and then the 2 swords for the army. It's the Ukrainian army badge. It's real. I tell folks, Vlad even got into trouble exporting these things, so they are very real. Government wasn't very happy with Vlad. we got our little Vlad into some trouble. Thank you for that on TikTok. So that's got another 2 days, and I'll launch another one tomorrow just for our paid subscribers, but that's at discord.aravosis.com. And let me dive right in, and at the very end of the show, we'll talk a little bit about how else you guys can help support me. All right, that was the housekeeping. So the first story out there is, do you remember maybe a month ago, the daughter of that far-right I say far-right nationalist is actually being polite to the guy, of the sort of murderous far-right nationalist in Dugin, Alexander Dugin, and his daughter, forgetting her first name, Dugina, is her last name. It's the, the female version of the father's name, basically. And she was blown up in a car bomb. And at the time, people were trying to figure out and thinking, was he the target? Because she's a big person on Kremlin TV. I mean, and she's horrific. I mean, I think called for like the Ukrainians to all be killed. And, she like her father is not a great or was not a great person. But people were wondering whether the father was the target and not her. Well, the New York Times is reporting today, very interesting story. Just the fact that the story is being reported is very interesting, that U.S. officials are saying that they believe it was the Ukrainians, I should say some Ukrainians, who blew up her car. The thinking is that it was, and this is all sort of between the lines. I mean, the story's very weird, including I'm reading the story and I'm going, why would the U.S. admit this publicly? Like, why would the U.S. do that, undercut Ukraine? They weren't undercutting Ukraine. Not necessarily. It looks like from this story, there may have been a rogue faction in the Ukrainian government that may have put a hit out on this guy in Moscow. They accidentally got his daughter. He and the daughter, were supposed to leave a concert together, some like nationalist concert they were having in Moscow. They left separately. It looks like possibly some rogue element in Zelensky's government did this, may not have even told Zelensky, is the thinking, and that the U.S. finally felt the need to go public because they felt this was so dangerous and possibly not getting reined in enough. In other words, clearly they would have told Zelensky this privately. But I'm telling you this only from my background. I mean, 30 years here doing public policy in Washington, D.C., politics. You don't go public against an ally. The U.S. wouldn't do this unless there were a very serious reason. Otherwise, you go privately to Zelensky and you go, dude, don't do that again. It's not a good idea. The fact that they went public to me means they fear that Zelensky hasn't done enough to pull in these rogue elements of his military intelligence is my guess, but who knows? That's just my take on it. But I'm telling you, we wouldn't go public unless the Biden administration were very worried that Zelensky wasn't listening. Very weird. At the time, the U.S. was pretty much pissed about the attack. They felt a couple of reasons, actually. One, blowing up this woman or even her father doesn't accomplish anything. He's not like a super influential guy. I mean, he's an influential guy, but he's not like Putin's right-hand man. He's not like, Putin's Rasputin, to make a pun that I didn't intend there. It's not that important of a guy. So why would they blow him up? The risk of it is that the Russians then turn around and say, well, I guess we'll start blowing up Ukrainian officials in Kyiv. And the article concluded with some concerns from U.S. officials that they're worried the Russians might even be heading in that direction, that in terms of how the Russians are going to escalate, the Russians are talking about nuclear war, but a lot of us don't think the Russians are going to actually do it. But what could the Russians do? They could put basically put a price on the head of Zelensky himself. And that the article even said that. So very weird story. Just bringing it up because obviously it's, it's out there now. But I thought it was a very strange story. Now, otherwise, good news in general in Kherson and in Kharkiv. These are the two regions. Again, I will just show you my handy dandy map that I've been showing you guys just to give you a sense. So this is the map of Ukraine. Kharkiv it's not even Kharkiv anymore. Actually, they're getting out of Kharkiv. Let's say Eastern Ukraine and Southern Ukraine is what we'll try to call it from here on out. So there's fighting going on in Eastern Ukraine around the area of that red mark in the east. Also, I'd say a little bit to the north and a little bit to the east of that red mark as well. And then you see the couple of the hearts I put at the bottom. That's close enough to where the fighting is going on now. Those are actually two villages that were liberated at this point in southern Ukraine in the Kherson province. But the fighting is still going on in both regions. Let me pull this back up. Hang on a second. Got to get rid of that. There we go. I'm back. I'm back. So let me just take you right through this. So let's start with Kherson. So Kherson is the battle happening in the south. The Institute for the Study of War, which is that think tank I really like here in Washington, D.C., defense think tank. The Institute for the Study of War research group says Russian forces in order to avoid encirclement. In other words, to avoid getting literally circled by Ukrainian troops, because then you've got them firing at you from all sides and you're in real trouble, retreated from at least 18 settlements in Kherson. Let me pull up my boom. This is from yesterday, but it hasn't changed that much from what we know. The problem is what you're getting with the war. I'll pop back real quick here. Part of the problem with a war like this is we don't know what's going on every second of the war. For obvious reasons, the Ukrainians don't want to tell us which towns they're fighting for, which towns they're taking, which towns they're going at, because they don't want the Russians to know. They don't want the Russians to be able to prepare in advance. So we sort of get these updates later in the evening that sort of summarize. Part of this is from last evening, and I even had shown you guys this during the show yesterday. But just to give you a sense, so 2 days ago, we were at that red line. Yesterday afternoon or yesterday evening to afternoon, we were at that blue line. It's probably the blue line has moved a little bit south now, so a little bit down. But the, what was I going to tell you here? Okay, so this is the Kherson region, the region in the south, and ISW says that the Russians have withdrawn, retreated from at least 18 different settlements, meaning 18 different towns, and including, Davidiv Breed and Duchani. Duchani is 23. Number 2, I've got written on the map there, and they call it a strategically important cog in Russia's supply lines. So the most important thing to remember with this map is that river. That's the river that cuts Ukraine in half. And hold on a second. I'll put my Ukraine map again here. So actually, where's my, oops, there it is. That's the one that's got the marks on it. You see the river cutting the country in half. That's the Dnipro River. And most of the Russian troops are east of the river, so to the right? You've got a small number of Russian troops that are west of the river, to the left. And I will zoom in now, so now you can get a little bit of a better view. So the Russian troops are pretty much, as you can see in the map here, the Russian troops are south of the blue line. And that blue line, I didn't continue it, but it kind of continues and goes down and cuts the space halfway between Kherson, which is number 3 on the map, and Mykolaiv, which I don't have listed, but it's that big city right to the left. To the outer leftmost edge of the map, you see Mykolaiv. If you cut those in half, that's where the Russian troops pretty much are. They're probably might even be a little closer. So everything south, so if that blue line were to continue all the way down there between Mykolaiv and Kherson, everything south of the blue line is Russians. But in this part, you've got the Russians north of the river. Everywhere else in Ukraine, the Russians are south or east of the river in the entire country, including here. What happens is the Ukrainians have been blowing up the bridges crossing the rivers and have done a very good job blowing them up so that it's next to impossible for the Russians to get reinforcements, to get more men, to get more vehicles, to get more tanks, to get more ammunition, to get food and water even, so that as these Ukrainians move down, and you can see how even in the last couple of days from the red to the blue, they're moving down. They are cornering the Russians on this side of the river, and it's not clear what the Russians are going to do. I mean, eventually they may have to swim for their lives and leave all their equipment, quite literally swim for their lives and leave all of their equipment, or they may just have to surrender. But that's why, well, this is one of the reasons why the Russians are in so much trouble and why you're seeing a lot of the Russian commentators so upset, because in this region in particular, you are talking between 15,000 and 25,000 Russian troops, depending who you talk to, that are in that pocket north and west of the river. So that's 15 to 25,000 men when you consider that the whole Russian force that invaded was somewhere between 160,000 and 190,000. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. Well, we're trying to move over, Laka. We haven't moved over totally yet, but thank you. I appreciate that. Let me give you a little more here. Ukrainian military officials noted that the Ukrainian interdiction campaign is crippling Russian attempts to transfer additional ammunition reserves, mobilized men, and means of defense to the front line, which I just mentioned. In the northeast, which is the other big region we are paying attention to. I'll pull up the big map again first, and then I'll do my zoom. So the big map, look at the red dot I've got there on the right-hand side of the map. The red dot there is Liman, I believe, the town of Liman, which was liberated a little bit ago, several days ago, probably Saturday morning, Sunday morning. It's so funny. It was only 5 days ago, and I feel like I was going to say a week or two ago, just 5 days ago. Let's zoom in. Now, Liman is number 3 on my map. So that was that big red dot. Again, I will just for fun to show you guys. Okay, so the big red dot all the way to the right, that's Liman, number 3 on my map, and then I'll zoom in again. So that's number 3 at the bottom of my map here. Now, what's been going on here, and interesting, today we actually have a little more information about this map. Yesterday, we had a little bit more about the other one. So this is in eastern Ukraine, northeastern Ukraine, and the first you had the Ukrainians, well, we had the big counteroffensive that was moving east. Okay, this was the big one from a couple of weeks ago that we were all going, oh my God. And within a week or two, remember the Ukrainians just like swooshed everything. So as they were moving east, they got to Kupiansk. Then number 1. Then they went down south to number 2, Izium. Now, they, of course, liberated the villages between the two, and the Russians moved to the east side of the Oskil River, okay? That river right there going north-south. So the Russians moved to the east side of it, and they were using the river as sort of their natural barrier, their defense. Well, the Ukrainians kept going south, and they went down south to Liman, okay? So they went down to Liman there, number 3. And in the meantime, I ought to mention too, each of these towns is critically important for logistics. In other words, supply lines. So number 1, huge supply line in Kupiansk, big train intersection. What do you call it? Where all the trains meet. So very important there. Kupiansk was very important for supplying Izium, number 2. Number 2 was and look at those. The yellow are the highways, right? So number 2 was very important for supplying number 3. Izium, right? Or Liman, Liman. So the Ukrainians have been very good at systematically taking out the Russian logistics, okay? And basically the supply lines, the food, the water, the ammunition, all those lines being cut off. So the Russian troops are fighting, and now they're not getting any additional support. Well, as I said, including food and water. The big threat from a couple days ago I mentioned was that the Ukrainians would go after number 4 and number 5. Number 4 is Kremina. Number 5 is Svatove. At some point, I'm going to figure out how to I can't pronounce everything in Ukrainian, but even in English, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Svatove or Svatove. So number 4 and 5 are critically important to the Russians. And the Russians had fallen back to Kremina, number 4, and to Svatove, number 5, right? So what the Ukrainians did in the meantime is they've been liberating the towns, I would say. If you go to Kupiansk, number 1, go across the river to the east, and then go just all the way down along the river, down through number 7, all the way down to number 3. They've been liberating all those towns coming down the river, okay? Now they're moving east. Well, in today's report, we've got, and I'm going to jump around here a little. Well, let me kind of take this systematically, okay? The UK Ministry of Defense for Great Britain Intelligence Office reports that Ukrainian formations have advanced up to 20 kilometers, which is like 12, 13 miles maybe, beyond the river into Russia's defensive zones towards the supply node of the town of Svatove, number 5, as I said. It's highly likely that Ukraine, this is from the Ministry of Defense. It's highly likely that Ukraine can now strike the key Svatove-Kremina road. Now, this key road I marked in that blue, that kind of aqua blue or whatever color you'd call it. So the blue line that I've got down from number 5, that's a key highway. It's like, I'd say Route 66. I don't know what else they call it. It's R66 in Ukraine. Route 66 is a famous highway in America, sort of going across the continent. It is highly likely Ukraine can now strike that road with most of its artillery systems, which means the Russians are not safe in their current defensive positions up and down that road, trying to once again defend their supply lines in number 5 and number 4. There's a Russian source reported that fighting is ongoing in Krasno-Rikhenske, a settlement near Route 66, which I marked in number 8. So that one stuck out at me the most. There is now reporting, and the Russians are reporting, and these are Russian military bloggers. The Russian military bloggers are very tied in. So I'll pull this away a second so you can see me. They're very tied in to what's going on. They're embedded. They've got sources with the Russian troops. They know a lot of what's actually going on. So it's been very interesting for our guys to be following what the Russian military bloggers are saying. And what they are saying here is that there is now fighting taking place at number 8. And if the fighting's at number 8, that means the Ukrainians have now moved all the way over from the river. Yesterday we were talking a lot about the Ukrainians, as I said, liberating towns along the eastern side of the river. Now they've moved all the way up to that key highway between number 4 and number 5, which is hugely important. One thing I haven't mentioned the last couple of days, look at number 6. Number 6 is Severodonetsk. Severodonetsk is that town. Do you remember like 2 or 3 months ago when the Russians and the Ukrainians were fighting over a town in eastern Ukraine, and they had like a month-long battle, and it was this crazy town, and everybody said the Ukrainians are going to lose, whether it's 2 weeks or 4 weeks, they're going to lose, but they're fighting this battle in order just to weaken the Russians and make them, more and more tired so that they won't be able to fight in the south as much. That was the town of Severodonetsk, number 6. So the Ukrainians, once they get number 5 and 4, again, it's easier just to use the numbers. Once they get number 5 and 4, and they're in the midst of getting 8 right now, the next move is most likely going for number 6. And what does that do? That then puts the Ukrainians in reach of going after Luhansk. And Luhansk, let me show you, that is one of the key provinces that the Russians have. If here on this general map, look at the farthest to the right, you see in red Luhansk, one of the Ukrainian oblasts or provinces or states, depending what you want to call it. Luhansk and Donetsk, the one next to it in purple, that's the area called Donbass. And that's the area where Putin has really, 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 really wanted to take over. I mean, he wants to get all of Ukraine. He wants to get that whole swath of land in the southeast, but he really wants Luhansk and Donetsk. It's considered just very, military. It's actually economically important, but also it's something that they've been fighting for since 2014 to try to basically steal that land from the Ukrainians. That is also, if you look at the map of the annexations, what I circled in red are the 4 provinces that were annexed Putin claimed they were annexed last week. Nobody recognizes it. You see, Luhansk is one of the 4 provinces. Well, that little mark on the map, I put the X, is that is Liman, which is the town that was liberated this past weekend. And once the Ukrainians sweep up what they're doing, potentially in the next couple of days, they will then be moving into Luhansk. And Luhansk is going to be very interesting because that, as I said, is one of the provinces that Putin has declared is now part of Russia. And it's going to put Putin on the spot a bit because now it's going to be the Ukrainians moving into land that Putin said was Russia. And what's Putin going to do about it? Right? I don't think he's going to do much of anything about it, but it puts him, it makes it very embarrassing in a not face-saving kind of way. Oh, hang on here. I didn't see. Oh, that was Laka. Thanks, Laka. It makes it really embarrassing that he loses face because he just declared last Friday that these are Russia, and within a week, the Ukrainians are going after. Although I will say, he also had declared that those towns that Ukraine is liberating right now, Izium, Liman, all of those he claimed were Russia too. Thank you for that on TikTok, and obviously the Ukrainians got those too. Now, oh yeah, the other thing, just to give you a little bit more here, and then we'll move on with this. But since the battle in the east and the south are so important, so Svatove, which is the town I can't pronounce, number 5, a Russian military blogger claimed that elements of Russia's 1st Guards tank army and elements of a motorized division and combined arms army are preparing to defend Svatove, number 5. In other words, the Russians are getting worried that after 8, which is what the Ukrainians are currently going after, they're moving on up to 5 next. So that's what's going on in that region. Let me see, because I had a lot on this, but I don't know that we need any more here. Yeah, that's good enough. I wanted to talk a little bit about mobilization. The mobilization, as you know, is what the Russians, basically they had a draft. It wasn't really a draft, but it was kind of a draft. And they were initially going to call up just their most experienced fighters, people who had already fought previously in the military. And of course, they ended up calling up everybody. Thank you for that on TikTok, the burgers. They called up everybody. They got into a lot of trouble for it. Putin finally had to go and say, okay, all the old men, all the men that have 4 kids, all the men who didn't serve in the military, like everybody people who were had mental problems, people who weren't healthy. Thank you for the origami, by the way. I did see that. That all those people needed to be sent back home. They weren't supposed to be drafted, send it back home. I'm not convinced they're going to get back home because good luck, but nonetheless, that's where we are. So anyway, Putin decides to have this mobilization. He wants to call up at least 300,000 new Russian men, new Russian troops, and he may be calling up as many as 1 or 1.2 million. We don't know. The Russians say they've called up already 200,000 of these guys. Let me have a little bit of my coffee. I was saying at the beginning of the show, I was getting a headache right before the show, and I couldn't figure out why I was getting a headache, and I realized I didn't have my second cup of coffee today. I totally forgot, so excuse me having a coffee as I talk to you, but I'm going to have the worst migraine tonight if I don't do this. So while I have my cappuccino at 6:30 in the evening just to give an Italian a heart attack. Nancy, thank you for that. One of the things you learn when you go to Italy is that the Italians only drink cappuccino in the morning. They get very upset at Americans in particular, who we love our cappuccino all times of day. And you learn how to say in Italian, how to beg for a cappuccino. So mobilization. This was very interesting. So General Hertling, an American general, retired, who I really like. He's the former U.S. commander of the Army in Europe. And Hertling did a nice Twitter thread today, sort of an analysis on Twitter, another social media app, talking about why he doesn't think this mobilization is going to help Russia at all. And he kind of went through the whole thing. It was very interesting. I took notes on the general points. I will just go through them. One, he said, okay, a lot of these guys, well, some of them we already know, have been moved to the front literally in a matter of days. They've been getting no training at all. Some of them got 1 day. A lot of them are getting no training at all. Obviously, that's not good. He said, even the ones that are getting 2 months of training, which is huge because most of them are not. I mean, Putin said they're getting 2 weeks of training, but even ones that might be getting a couple months of training. He said, 1, you might be able to train the basics of soldiering in 2 months. Yes. 2, you can't train combined arms warfare. Some of the more specialized things these guys need to know how to do. 3, you can't teach generals, colonels, and new sergeants how to be leaders. Teaching them leadership, you can't do in 2 months. 4, you can't fix the corruption endemic in the system. A big part of the Russians' problems have been that they have a corrupt military system. It has stolen from upkeep of supplies, modernization of military supplies. They just stole the money. It's still corrupt. Putin what's he going to do? How's he going to outfit these guys? It's still a corrupt system. It's still corrupt. He said you can't coordinate tankers, meaning men who operate tankers, infantry, artillery, intelligence, engineers, air forces for battlefield operations. You can't counter distrust that these soldiers already have in the system and their distrust of the war and their low morale. You can't change that in 2 months. You can't issue equipment, uniform, ammunition, food, spare parts that are not there. He said the sanctions are taking their toll, and the Russians literally don't even have these things to provide their troops. You can't offer advice to a president who won't listen. We have had reports in the last couple of weeks, especially, that Putin, thank you, Sandra, for that Putin is directing the war himself, but meaning he's going and ordering the generals on the ground, like, okay, attack this area. He from what we've heard, we believe Putin is not letting them withdraw from certain towns. Like Putin is literally telling them, you're not going to leave that little town. You're going to stay there. You're going to, it makes me think of Donald Trump. You're going to stay there and you're going to keep fighting. Well, it's idiotic. That's not the way you fight a war. You need the guys on the ground. You need the generals to be empowered, but you also need the local commanders to be empowered. I mean, I'm not even a military guy, and I know this. You've got to sort of empower the local people to look and say, okay, do we have to cut our losses or not? And move on to the next town where maybe we can do a better defense. Putin's trying to save face, and he's like, no, keep fighting. His bottom line was, he said, overall, you cannot change the culture in 2 months. That takes years or even decades. He thinks this mobilization isn't going to do squat for the Russians. Very interesting, and I was glad to hear it as well. I'm going to mention something. There's a video going around. I almost showed it to you guys, and then I read a critique of it, so I didn't show you. There's a video going around that shows a Russian soldier complaining about how everybody in his unit is sick, they don't have food, and there's a whole bunch of men cheering him on. Some of the other defense analysts I know think the video is a fake. Not it's a fake. They think it's a propaganda fake, meaning it's real, it's Russian, but it was done, and this was the most interesting to me, it was done to embarrass, I think, the military itself. Like, it's some of the far right elements of the Russian military and the Russian, body politic that are gunning for the military heads to be, shot or removed because the war is going so badly, and they feel like the military heads should have gone much tougher. They should have dropped nukes. They should have, right, all this kind of thing. They should have killed everybody when they came in. Thank you, Melissa, for that. And I was going to show you, and then I read that and I pulled it. So just be a little bit aware when you see that going around, that it may be not what it seems to be. And that raises a second issue. So I had put something up yesterday, and the interesting thing is, actually, here's the picture I put up there. When I raised this story, do you guys remember? You know what's funny? I remember kind of tying myself in knots a little bit at the end of the story, and I wasn't even sure why I was doing it, but I started backstepping a little, and I said, be aware that we don't know. Also, it was being shared by the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, and I said, I just kind of said it like that, like, just be careful, but I'm telling you anyway. Let's see. It looks like not that the story was a fake, but it was kind of a fake. What happened here, and this kind of pisses me off because the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense shared this story, and honestly, it's pretty outrageous that they did. They should not have shared this story, because I believe the story, because especially once the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense shared it, I thought, okay, they must have confirmed this for them to share it, right? No, they saw something going around and they thought it was a good story and they shared it without checking it. The thing on the right is a bunch of teeth, a bunch of fillings on teeth, and a lot of them are gold. Ukraine being an older country, they use gold still in their mouths. In America, we tend not to anymore. And the story going around was this was from a torture center that this was found. Well, Bild, the German publication, BILD, interviews a local dentist in the area, Ukrainian, who says that looks exactly like a tray of teeth fillings that was stolen from my dentist office that the Russians stole. And he said, I've been collecting them for years. They're all the fillings and all the, everything I've pulled out of the customers that I've had for years, I've just kept in a box. And that looks exactly like mine. And another reporter, actually, Tom Much, I'm already forgetting. Was it Tim? Tom. I think it was Thomas Much, who was the Kiwi journalist who we had on a couple weeks ago to talk from Ukraine, to talk to us about the war. He tweeted and said the same thing. He said, that's sensational of a story. There isn't one civilian who stepped forward to say they pulled my teeth or whatever. We're not finding bodies with teeth pulled. In any case, this looks like now it wasn't a true story in the sense that it wasn't the Russians pulling gold, is what it looks like from what we know. Pisses me off a little bit, like I said, because the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense shared the story and they shouldn't have shared it. Any case, I also, and frankly, maybe I shouldn't have shared it either, because like I said, at the end of the story, I caught myself and I said, just keep in mind these stories, we don't always know. And I have no idea why, but my gut was telling me something about it was too good to be true, or too bad to be true, so to speak, in this case. In any case, that's the teeth story. A few more, and then I've got a number of videos to show you. Actually, I'm gonna write this down too, because I have an Iranian and a video from Iran too, another good one. So the one sad story, and then we'll get to some of the good stuff. An Irishman fighting for Ukraine was killed near the Russian border. Rory Mason, a 23-year-old Irish national, died in combat while taking part in the counteroffensive in Kharkiv, which is in the east. So that was obviously very bad. Patty, thank you for that, and thank you for the gift on TikTok. All right, so I've got a few videos here. First one, let me see here. Okay, let me show you this one first. This one was kind of neat. This is a video of Ukrainian troops using a EDM4S. I mean, I'm not even going to use the word that they call it, because it's not. And I don't want to get in trouble on either of these platforms by even using the word, because it's not. It is an electromagnetic pulse, and it beams out an electromagnetic pulse. I am not the experts on electromagnetic. I mean, I do know a lot of what they do, but like how you generate one, but it's a pulse of electromagnetism, right? I mean, magnetism that gets thrown out. And what we know about EMP, electromagnetic pulses, is they cause haywire with electronic systems. One of the big concerns about nuclear war, or how a nuclear war would be fought, is dropping a nuclear weapon like high over a country like America or wherever. I don't know how many you'd need. I don't even know if you'd need one big one or not, but it goes up in the sky and it throws out this electromagnetic pulse that basically fries all the electronic equipment on the ground. And I mean, fries it like you're gone. Okay. Well, they've got a weapon that shoots out an electromagnetic pulse, and they're using it to take down some of these Iranian drones and Russian drones that are starting to cause more havoc with Ukraine. The Russians have now been using these kamikaze drones to go after Kyiv in the last couple of days, to go after infrastructure. I just want to show you this really quick because it's kind of neat. It shows basically the weapon itself looks like something out of sci-fi. I mean, it is. I laughed when I saw this picture because it's so freaking big. It looks ridiculous, but it just puts electromagnetic waves in the air, but in a targeted way that took down the drone. So watch this really quick. It was really cool, and as I said, not violent at all. So I have no problem showing you.
Отак, така класна штука, як антидронова рушниця, сьогодні чергове нам допомогла. Так що дякую.
I mean, look at that ridiculous. Did you catch that at the end? It looks like something out of like sci-fi. I mean, that thing is insane. It's absolutely insane. That blew my mind when I saw that. I know. I was like, it's some sci-fi electrical magnetic generator in essence. And I mean, it actually is kind of cool because it's a jammer. Yeah, it's a jammer in essence. Yeah. Although, but it's an EMP. I looked it up, and it is EMP. It is EMP. So very cool. And I mean, very. I Googled it. It's EMP. Do some. I just Googled it, guys. I'm telling you, Google it and see. But I just Googled the thing. It's called the. Hang on. It is the E, D as in David, M as in Mary, 4 S as in Sam. So E, D, M, 4 S. I'm trying to find somewhere else to pull it up. The first one I pulled up. I'm trying to find other sources here, but I'm going to pull this here. I know. Hang on. Where was this? The operator aims the system towards the intended airborne target and a pull of the trigger activates an electromagnetic pulse effect, resulting in a partial or complete interruption of the drone's communication signals. Now, let me ask you this. Is it possible that the way that's written is making me wonder if they're saying that it does something to the drone that causes the drone to almost emit its own EMP that fries it. Anyway, you do the research. Oh, sorry, I'll take that down. Yeah. Well, at least the teeth aren't teeth. We know that at least. So that's good. Yeah. So you guys do the research on that, but far be it for me to not research something before I put it up there. I did. I'm good about that. Well, also, the way they landed it, thank you for the butterflies there on TikTok. The way they landed it sure looked like they took over, right? Because I'm looking at that going, if that drone was destroyed, it would have crashed on the ground. It wouldn't have landed nicely in the guy's hands, right? That's not the way it would work. Yeah. In any case, like I said, feel free to Google it. I'll tell you one last time. E, so Eric, David, Mary, 4, Sam. So Eric, David, Mary for Sam, if you want to Google it and learn about it. Pretty cool though. Let me see. Another thing I want to show you. Oh, this was neat too. This was very neat. So this is some Russian troops surrendering, and it's kind of neat because it clearly is a surrender that was organized beforehand, which was pretty cool. And the Ukrainians have set up. We know at the beginning of the war they did this, but recently they set up some more phone numbers. They've been advertising for Russian troops to surrender, but to call and get instructions on how to surrender safely, so that the Russian troops know how to do it in a way where they're not going to get killed. Check this out. This is a Russian BMP infantry fighting vehicle. It looks like a tank that is surrendering, but it's pretty cool. And you'll see that the guys kind of come out and they get the flag, but it's kind of neat. Watch this for about 2 minutes, maybe.
Смотрим карман.
Oops, sorry, let me pull that one down. So that I thought was very cool too. And also, as somebody just mentioned in the comments, because I was going to mention this, dissolve. I just realized that dissolve the topics. Yeah, I did. Although I don't really care if you guys can see me, because I wanted you to focus on the village. I mean, the village on the video. But as somebody mentioned in the comments, what was interesting too is that the BMP was looking fine. Right. These weren't people who had to, turn themselves in because their vehicle was destroyed. And what do? Their vehicle was working fine. They just didn't want to fight anymore. And again, you know what? To their credit, I'm not going to knock the Russians for that. And yeah, there is a second video, Kelly. Correct. It's longer. I mean, this one alone was 2 minutes and 20 seconds, and I chopped it up to some degree. So the final 2 videos I'm going to show you, and then the final ones saw young girls, literally high school girls in Iran acting up, which was fabulous. But this second one to last is the Ukrainian government putting this video out basically to freak out the new recruits and say, you know what, all you guys getting mobilized, maybe you need to just call it quits and not walk into the cauldron. So let me show you this. This one's pretty wild. Thank you for that. mean, those last two scenes, our sunflowers don't fertilize themselves, and then a for rent sign on a tombstone. I mean, whoo, these guys, I mean, boy. Now, the last one I'm going to show you is in Iran, and this, I don't know if it's today, but it's the last couple days. You know that in Iran, there have been ongoing protests after a young 22-year-old woman named Mahsa Amini was murdered in custody by the morality police. She was arrested for apparently checking out the sunset. It's doing something a little bit. I could see the sky getting a little red behind me. Mahsa Amini arrested by the morality police because she had a little bit of hair showing allegedly under her scarf, showing, which you're not allowed to show if you're a woman. And allegedly, again, her pants were too tight. So they arrested her. And killed her. They beat her in custody and she died. There have been protests in Iran for 2.5 weeks now as a result of this. Really amazing. Women around the country standing up, throwing off their scarves, burning them in public. Men standing up and joining them, fighting back against the secret police. Really amazing. And this was at a high school. And apparently the girls had been protesting at the high school and refusing to wear their scarves or whatever. So they brought in a member of the Revolutionary Guards. And, I've got to pull up the exact quote. But he's with something called like the Basij, B-A-S-I-J, element of the Revolutionary Guards. And they kept yelling at him. Oh God, I have it. It's funny. I did a TikTok video. It's in my TikTok video, but I don't remember anymore what hold on. I've got it here. Hold on. Because I want to tell you exactly what they're yelling at him, because it was so great. 1 minute here. And then I'm going to show you the video because it's a great video. Here it is. They're yelling. They're taking off their headscarves, and he's there to restore order again, okay? Because the girls have been acting up all week. So he comes, called the Basij. He comes, and they start taking off their headscarves and chanting at him, "Get lost, Basiji." And the Revolutionary Guards are like, the nasty police there, or the military police, or soldiers. Lucienne, I should say. Thank you very much for that. Sweet of you. All right, let me show you this really quick. This is just great. Isn't that great? I just let me show you. But I just love that. Get lost, Basiji. That just cracks me up. All right, let me pull this up. Well, I guess I don't need the topics anymore. There we go. And let's jump into the Q&A. And thank you, Luciana. Actually, for Sasha treats. Exactly. Thank you very much. Because Lord knows Sasha doesn't get enough. I am surprised Iran has been tolerating it for so long. Yeah, although they aren't totally. I mean, they did at a school the other day, university, that they really clamped down and, I attacked the students and everything else. It strikes me that it's it's what was it? Melikara is saying it's not a protest, it's a revolution. That's the way I feel when I'm looking at this, watching people just get energized. But let's see. I mean, we had our speaker last weekend who was saying he's still very worried that, allergies, that the government's going to clamp down hard, and that unless you get enough people turning out, critical mass of 5% or whatever, it may not be enough. So, why it's a good question. I am not the expert on this, Clark. Clark is asking, why do they require the hair be covered? It's for religious reasons. Their interpretation of conservative Islam. I would not be surprised. I don't want to guess on this. But you've got, does anybody know? Because you got a couple possibilities here. One is modesty and the idea of women being modest, and hair. If you think women, You know, their hair is beautiful and it makes men excited and all this kind of garbage. For example, they, the more conservative, like the Taliban, expect you to wear that whole, is it chadora? What do you call the big whole outfit? The head to foot black with just the eyes showing, because again, women are supposed to hide themselves and be modest. Modesty. Okay, Blue Piggy is saying modesty is prescribed for both men and yes, it's prescribed for both men and women, but men are always a burqa. Thank you. It's not the chador, it's the burqa. Yeah. Men are always able to get away with it and women are not, is the thing, So yes, women are supposed to cover their hair for modesty's sake. Yes. And for their men's eyes only. So, conservative, it's old conservative, conservative Islamic. No one wants to wear it in Iran. Yep. Oh, so it is the chador. I remember hearing about the chador in Iran. Okay. So the chador is what the Iranians wear. And I'm going to guess that's less than, I got cold, so I put the jacket back on. It's going back and forth, my temperature in my apartment. All right. So let me pull up, let me see here. Hold on. People are still weighing in on the, Daniel is saying, my coworker who's Iranian was telling me how this is a cultural item. The religious aspect is the interpretation of the modesty. Dragana, so much to say about the hijab, and I can because of my family history, but my doctor gave me so much drugs for my shoulder that I can't type straight. Okay. Another day you can weigh in, Dragana. That's all right. That's all right. St. Paul insisted women cover their heads in the early church. Well, think about that there is a Catholic thing. Women who go to see the Pope. I mean, remember Melania Trump did it, but other women too. Aren't they supposed to wear like some kind of a scarf thing on their head? The women who see the Pope? There's some kind of and it's not like a fancy hat. That's not what it is. It's like a scarf kind of modesty thing or something, So, who knows? All right, let me jump in. I'm going to look at my TikTok for the Q&A questions, and then obviously you guys throw in more here. Oops. Beep, 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 beep. Thank you for. It's the Affleck duck. We haven't had that one in a while on TikTok. Hang on here. Oh, anybody? Nope, maybe not. Unless North Korea just fired another missile. Did they just fire another missile, or was this from the other day and nobody's given additional questions? Did they just fire another one, or is this just an old question that's sitting here? If Ukraine continues its sorry, seeing what we got going on here. They just fired. Okay, so they did just fire. Okay. Honestly, the thing with North Korea, like my thoughts, the thing with North Korea is he's crazy. I mean, he is crazy. And that regime is just woo-woo, screwed up regime in North Korea. So that is something that people need to worry about. Sorry, adjusting my light as I talk to you. That's a real problem, I will say, North Korea. So that's real. I don't know really what to say about it, because there's just a big part of me that feels like everything with North Korea is just, he wants attention. I mean, he wants attention, I just don't, the biggest problem with that guy is he's got nukes. I mean, and it's a problem, and he's developing more, and he's developing this longer range, options for the nukes too. It's bad. It's very bad. But no, he's crazy. I mean, that's the one I worry about. I'm not worried about Putin. I'm worried about that one. Barry, is BBC really saying it though? Because that was sort of the BS story that the Times had the other day with the train and doing a test on the border and everything else. And everyone really got pissed at the Times, it was the Times of London or whatever, for reporting it. But BBC is reporting Putin is likely to do a nuclear test in the coming days. This will apply a lot of pressure to the West about bluffs. I don't think so. Why do we care if he does a nuclear test? Seriously, I don't care. He does a nuclear test. So what? I mean, so what? I don't get I just don't care if Putin does a nuclear test. So what? Again, I put this in my category of all the things I would do if I were Putin and I was trying to freak people out. I told you I would take the nukes and I'd put them on planes and I would buzz the Scandinavians. I'd get close to their airspace and freak them out. And actually, he did do that with, was it Norway yesterday? I think they buzzed the Norwegian airspace. And I was reading they do it like 40 or 50 times a year, 40 or 50, 50. So that's not a big deal. I just don't, yeah, I don't care. I really don't. I don't care if Putin's doing nuclear tests. I mean, meaning in the grand scheme of like, it's not a threat. It's a nuclear test. I mean, I get it from a policy position why we may not want nuclear tests and blah, 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 blah. But it doesn't mean he's one step closer to using them. It just means he's trying to freak us out. And if anything, it's kind of benign, In any case, yeah, I'm underwhelmed by it. Let's put it that way. If Ukraine continues its advance at this current rate, how long can Russia hold Kherson and Luhansk? So again, to show you guys, Kherson is the province in the south, and Luhansk is the one in the east. So like number 1 is Kherson and number 4 is Luhansk. All of the 4 provinces that I've circled in red there are all 4 of them that the Russians claim to have annexed the other week, last week. Now, the thing is, okay, they haven't really moved into Luhansk yet. So that's going to just be starting. So they haven't even done that yet. Kherson, they're moving in. Now, if you look, and I don't think I've got a closer, no, that's probably the closest I've got is that one. Is it? Hang on. Nope. Yeah, that is the closest I've got. Nope, that's even farther away. Okay. So if you look at this, and if you look at Kherson, which is, as I call it, like the first region on the bottom, you can barely see the river there, but you can see it. You can see the river. And, the north of the river is what they're fighting for now. They've got a lot of north of the river but they're still fighting for a portion of it. That means even once the Ukrainians take everything north of the river in Kherson, I mean, I'm just eyeballing this, but they've got, is it 70% maybe left, of Kherson to go? So they've got a lot left. It's not going to be ending anytime soon. So I'm not sure this is going to be going anytime quickly, as far as that the Ukraine is going to be able to sort of win this, especially now, because even the last couple of days, it's slowing down. I mean, they're doing well, but it's slowing down a little bit in the south, I think, whereas the east might have just picked up again in the last couple of days. But a couple factors. The Russians are rushing the new recruits out there. Will they make a difference? I quoted General Hertling earlier, former American general, very smart guy, saying he doesn't think they're going to make much of a difference. Winter is coming, not to go all Game of Thrones, but winter's coming, and the Ukrainians are trying to get as much success as they can before winter kicks in, because then it just makes it very hard. The ground's frozen, everybody's miserable, just makes it harder to advance at that point. So I don't, having said that, General Hodges, Ben Hodges, another big American general, retired. He said the other day that he hopes, but the way he said it was, made it look like he sees it as in the realm of the possible. And he said he hopes that Ukraine can get back all of those 4 territories that I showed that Russia just annexed, could get all of those back by New Year's. And next year, thank you for the let's go on TikTok. And next year that Ukrainians could be on the ground in Crimea. So Hodges seemed to think that that there's a possibility the Ukrainians could get all of the occupied territory, not Crimea, but all of the 4, as I said, again, just to show you, that all of these 4 provinces back by the end of the year. I mean, who knows? I think my guess is, from what we're hearing, a big part of that calculus is going to be, does the Russian military fall apart at the seams? The collapse. You'll see, and it's a military term as well. I mean, you will see soldiers talking about, the generals talking about a possible collapse of the Russian military. And you are seeing smaller collapses taking place in Kherson in the south, in the east, Kharkiv, and now turning into Luhansk, where literally the Russians are defending and they just fall apart and run in essence because they're collapsing. They're just, it's falling apart, their whole defense. And the question is whether that happens on a much larger scale. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Do any of you with sort of a defense background? I'm just curious, like, because we'll end shortly because we're already at the hour mark. But I'm curious what you guys, Wayne, empty history, you're good at this stuff too. Add winter into the mix. They're already a collapsing house of cards. The Russians are. Now, MT, let me ask you and everybody else, because you're a big history buff and a military history buff. Doesn't the winter cut both ways, though, as far as making it hard for the Ukrainians to advance and hard for the Russians to defend both? Because from what I'd read, there was some talk that the Ukrainians were actually trying to get everything done before winter kicks in, making as much advance as they could, assuming that winter was going to literally and figuratively freeze things for a while. Now, Otanbot, the West is not interested in a quick win for Ukraine. I think that's true. We go easy to avoid getting involved directly. I think that's true. I've still said from the beginning, I think our governments want a tie. They want a tie. And they're not intentionally dragging it out to hurt Russia, but they don't want Ukraine. As President Biden himself has said, we cannot let Russia win. We cannot let Ukraine lose. And it's a really cute rhetorical trick that to make it sound like you're saying, yeah, we want Ukraine to win. He didn't say that. He said, Russia cannot win and Ukraine cannot lose. Well, guess what? Because we learned this in law school. Guess what's what do you call those circles that overlap? What are they? Not Venn diagram, but the circles that overlap. What overlaps those circles is a tie. A tie is Russia doesn't win and Ukraine doesn't lose. And I think that's what we're going for. And a tie where we hurt Russia a lot. Ukraine hurts Russia a lot, and it makes Russia more amenable to now. Winter stopped the Nazis, correct? But that's Rob. But isn't that But that's what I'm saying. Winter stopped the Nazis. In this case, the Russians are the defenders. The Ukrainians aren't the defenders in this case. It's the Russians. So why does that not put the Ukrainians at a greater disadvantage for the winter? Now, empty history is saying that Ukraine is better equipped to find success in a Ukrainian winter. Fair enough. And we know they're literally better equipped in the sense that they're getting better winter outfits and everything else. Some of the Russians' outfits. Venn diagrams. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. But they're better equipped for the winter. Right now, Daniel is saying Ukraine is going into a muddy season. Autumn becomes muddy season and water freezes up all that muddy earth. Correct. But what's the impact then? See, but here's the problem, Unrestricted. Name one bill to help American cities with their clean water that didn't go through because of the war in Ukraine. You can't do it. Democrats tried to pass a $3 trillion with a T dollar bill to help infrastructure across the country. Republicans killed it. The war hasn't stopped us from helping. That was a $3 trillion with a T dollar bill. The war in Ukraine? I mean, people like to lie and say billions of billions. I got news for you. Billions of billions is around 1%, 2% of $3 trillion. It's not a lot. Even what the Ukrainians got, let's pretend the Ukrainians got 100 billion. They didn't even get close to 100 billion from the US. Not even close. It's like on the order of several tens of billions. Let's pretend it was 100 billion. That would be 3% of 3 trillion that the Ukrainians got. They didn't get that. They got more like 1% probably. So I think I smell a troll. First of all, I got news for you too. People presenting the argument you're presenting couldn't care less about clean water in America. Clean water in America is a Democratic issue, and Democrats are fine with promoting clean water and supporting the war. It's the Republicans who are against cleaning up the water and against supporting the war. Not all Republicans, a lot of Republicans have been good so far, but the Trump Republicans are horrible. So I smell a little bit of a Russian troll in your comment there, because that doesn't, it smells Fox Newsy and it smells Russian trolly. So sorry, the rest of you were weighing in here too. We're aiming for some kind of diplomatic solution. I think so too, but I'm not sure what the diplomatic solution is when you're getting mugged, because Ukraine is getting mugged, and you can't simply turn around and say, well, I know they stole 20% of your land, but can't you settle this diplomatically? They stole 20% of your land. Give me a break. Right. Ukraine's better equipped to find success in the winter. Sorry, let me find more of what you guys were saying here. Oops, sorry, Daniel. I'm trying to see. The problem is, I pull up your guys' comments and then I don't always have the previous comments. My cousins who's fighting in Ukraine has told me this much. So yeah, this is all about cutting off Russian logistics in time for winter so they surrender or retreat. Now that's interesting. That's it. Now that's interesting. I wasn't thinking of it from that perspective. If you're cutting off the logistics, and logistics are basically supplies. If you're cutting off the Russian supplies right as winter hits, they don't have fuel. They don't have food and water. They don't have anything. That does get interesting. And then they're in the middle of winter and they're not getting the basic supplies they need to fight, let alone the basic supplies they need to eat and drink. And to eat and drink. I'm sure Ukraine would, Miguel, at some point. I don't think a lot of Americans are going to go over for tourism now to Ukraine. I'm dying to go. I think a lot of people are. I think a tie is a terrible idea, Rob Craxford, but I think the tie means both parties have fought so much and they both just want it to come to an end and they come to some kind of a deal. I'll tell you, for example, I will bet you, no one would admit it on the U.S. side, but there, end of my coffee. No one would admit it. I wouldn't be surprised if, somebody in the White House, it locked away in a safe so nobody can find it, has their own little proposal where Russia gets Crimea, Donbass gets some kind of loose federation that's semi-autonomous, although maybe they've got that already. I don't know. Loose federation, whatever. And Ukraine gets back Kherson and Zaporizhia. And security guarantees, which is security guarantees my ass. But I wouldn't be surprised if NATO was fine with that, but then NATO wouldn't try to impose it on Ukraine, but it would be horrible. I think that's horrible. Again, you're mugged. The deal isn't the mugger gets something. The deal is the mugger stops and goes home, especially in this case when, what's really, actually somebody had raised, I can't remember who it was on Twitter the other day, and they raised this point. It was really smart. And they said, remember going into the war, how all these people, it was the people who don't want to help Ukraine now. All the people who don't want to help Ukraine said, oh, it's not even worth it. The Russians are going to win in 3 days. We shouldn't be sending any help to the Ukrainians. It's a done deal. Well, now they're saying, oh, those Ukrainians, they're way too good. The weapons we're sending them are way too effective. And now they're in danger of winning. So we shouldn't be sending them anything. So it's so we shouldn't help Ukraine because they're going to lose in 3 days, or we shouldn't help Ukraine because apparently they're going to win, right? Which one is it? And what really pisses me off, because somebody had mentioned this the other day too. Agreeing with me, because I've been saying it for a couple weeks now, a couple months now. Thank you for that on TikTok. It says if people in the West suddenly discovered the existence of Russia. Oh, Russia? Who knew Russia existed? I didn't know Russia existed, right? B, Vladimir Putin. Oh, he's crazy and mean. Oh, we never knew Vladimir Putin was really mean and crazy. Oh, what a surprise. C, Russia has nuclear weapons. Oh my God, they have nuclear weapons in this country called Russia, run by kind of a crazy leader. Who knew? Right? We better just genuflect and say we are not worthy. What do you want? Because they're crazy. They're going to kill us. Putin and Putin's been there for 20 years with nukes running Russia, right? Why are we so afraid of him now? The Soviet Union, I Googled this. The Soviet Union's first nuclear test was 1949, I believe. That means we've had, 40 years, more or less 40 years of the Soviet Union, 42 years of the Soviet Union having nukes. And those guys put Putin to shame. They were total badass assholes, those people. I lived in that era, not in the 1950 era, but later on. They were awful dictatorship, awful for world peace. Ask any European what they did to Europe. They took Europe hostage for 42 years. Horrific, or for 40 some years. But it pisses me off because we're supposed to act like, oh, this crazy country called Russia has nukes. We should all be very afraid. Well, they've had nukes for 70 years and, we're still here. Doesn't mean things aren't dangerous. Doesn't mean you don't pay attention to it. You should. Q&A. Let me check the Q&A. All right, hang on. I can't do all of them today because we can only do so many. And actually, we're already going really late here. I try not to go late too much because of my, I lost my voice at one point, but it's back now. Did you hear Russia offered to fix Nord Stream 2 and sell Europe oil at a discount? I did not hear that. That's funny if it's true. If I was Ukrainian commander, once the right bank of the river was taken, instead of trying to cross the river, I would launch an offensive from Zaporizhia. Well, that's the other thing. I mean, Zaporizhia, it's not that far away from where they're fighting along the banks of the river there in Kherson. So, hopefully at some point, the Russians are going to lose that one too. Let me see here. I just don't think Russia's going to use. Now, Russia might use the tactical nukes. We've talked about it a lot. I'm not convinced. All right. I'm going to go, guys. We've already passed into the after hours here, and I'm trying not to do too long of an after hours thing. I've got to hold on. I've got to get Kvalitetka. Wow, there's a name. Kvalitetka. Wow. That's an interesting name. I'm going to guess, is that Romanian? RSD? Kvalitetka. I'm even having a hard time pronouncing it. That's making me think it's not Romanian. Is that like a Scandinavian name? What is RSD? That's not Dragana, is it? No. Oh, it's Serbian. But Kv. Kv seems like such a strange combination of letters for a Cyrillic, maybe not Cyrillic. I guess you guys use the Latin alphabet, I believe. But for, you know what I mean? For a Slavic language. Kv. Interesting. Huh. Very interesting. Anyway, thank you for that, but that's interesting. Oh, it is Dragana. I thought it was you, Dragana. I was going to say, the picture looks familiar. I thought that was you. You changed your name, but Kvalitetka. Kv. I've never heard Kv before. That's interesting. For at least the Russians. Anyway, Dragana, you're fooling me. All right, guys. Yeah, I'm going to get rolling. Yeah, well, I know. The whole lot of opportunities were missed, although obviously the Russians did it too. Were missed after the Cold War ended, so to speak. It's too bad. I was hoping Russia would have sort of joined the West, but what do you do? Oh, okay. All right. Glad you're not a bot or a troll. Fair enough. I wasn't sure. The thing is, and I apologize for us thinking you were one, but a lot of times we get them, and after a while, you just kind of smell them coming from everywhere because we get a lot of them. Actually, we don't get as many on YouTube necessarily, but certainly on TikTok, get a lot of them. So fair enough. No, yeah, there's nobody has talked about, gosh, we wish we could do all these domestic priorities, but for Ukraine, the Republicans don't want to do it. They just don't want to do it. Democrats would be, my God, clean water. Democrats would die to spend billions on clean water. Are you kidding? I mean, absolutely. The Republicans don't want to do it. So anyway, all right, I will do my quick recap. Folks are noticing I did not do the recap. You are very correct. Oops, hang on. It's me, Dragana. Oh, you didn't have to pay to say it's me, Dragana. But thank you. That was sweet. Not that I have any idea how much the Serbian money goes for, but thank you. That was sweet of you. All right. So beep. We talked first about the New York Times story saying that it looks like an element of the Ukrainian government, possibly a rogue element of the Ukrainian government, blew up the car of the woman Dugina, the far-right nationalist in Moscow a month or two ago. The Ukrainians are continuing to advance in Kherson in the south, and in what remains of Kharkiv in the northeast. Excuse me, but they're about to hit Luhansk next, which is good. I'm trying to think. God, there was so much update with all of that. I'm not even sure where to start. Honestly, they're advancing in both. I mean, they're advancing in both. What's important in the south is that the Russians are going to soon get circled in the south in Kherson. They're going to get their back up to the river because they're north of the river, and there's about 15 to 25,000 Russian troops. That's what you keep an eye on there. And in the east, what's getting interesting is they're moving further east to the point now where they're about to enter Luhansk and start taking some of that territory back. And that gets into like the prime territory that Russia wanted. And when the Ukrainians start taking that back, that's going to really piss off Putin. What else? I gave you a long explanation of why General Hertling, a former American general who's very good, thinks mobilization won't help the Russians. Bottom line is, he thinks 2 months if these guys even get 2 months of training, and a lot of them aren't getting any training, he thinks 2 months of training is nothing. It's not going to do jack for these guys. You know, they're going to be, he didn't say cannon fodder, but in essence they are. They're going to be just, warm bodies put there, and that's it. I talked about those teeth that the story ended up being kind of bogus about the gold teeth in Ukraine. Looks like it wasn't the Russians that pulled them, at least from what we know. An Irishman, Rory Mason, 23-year-old, volunteered to fight for the Ukrainians and died in the counteroffensive in Kharkiv. I showed you another Ukrainian propaganda video about basically trying to convince Russian troops to lay down their arms, saying, what the flowers, I forget what it said, but you don't want to be sunflower fertilizer, or the sunflowers don't fertilize themselves, I think it said. I then showed you video of a very cool electromagnetic weapon for going after drones. And apparently they can use the drone, which is great after they capture it. And then showed you a really cool video of high school girls in Iran standing up to a member of the Revolutionary Guard who came to speak at their school to calm them down because they were all, they've been protesting all week. So they shouted him down, which was really adorable. Actually, I'm going to show it one more time because it's not too long and I love this video. Hold on, one more time. Oop. It's a short one, but I love it. All right, guys. All right, I'm going to get going. I think I'm going to skip doing Discord tonight because I'm a little tired, and it's 7:20 already. We've been doing this for an hour and 20 minutes. So join me again tomorrow. We'll do tomorrow the same thing, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. And I think that's it. Thank you for the gifts, as always. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for all the TikTok gifts. Now TikTok's buffering. Has TikTok, real quick before I sign off, has TikTok been buffering the whole show again like it's been doing? I'm only noticing it now. I didn't notice if it was doing it before. Was it doing it earlier too, TikTok? Because now it's buffering horribly. All the show. I'm seeing no. Okay, so some people, it's a mix of people. Some are getting yes and some are no. God, so annoying. So annoying. Okay. Yeah, last couple of days have been really bad. I don't know what's going on with TikTok. TikTok. What is wrong with you? All right, guys, I'm going to get going. I'll do my customary count to 8 so the TikTokers catch up. But I'll see you guys tomorrow at 6 p.m., okay? And thank you again for all your support. Appreciate it. Now we're going to count to let the TikTokers catch up. Appreciate it. Okay, they're caught up. All right, bye, guys.